Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. I gave in a long time ago to the reality that I have to repeat myself over and over again with kids. But it's still human to feel every once in a while that I've said this 16 times. Why aren't you following through on my instructions or my warnings? Today in Joshua 9 through 12, there is a very important instance here of where God, how many times does God have to say it? He specifically has spoken through Moses many times saying that you cannot move forward without God being in front of you. He has had the physical representation of that throughout every movement of the Israelites as they went through the wilderness and as they went across the Jordan. The host, the testament, the ark was to be in front of people. We didn't move without God going in front of us, without us focusing on what God wanted and where God wanted to go. And here we have Joshua stepping in. He's a rookie. He's green, and he's just taken over from Moses. And it gives the opportunity for Gibeon to send envoys to him. They have been very clever. They've got worn clothing and shoes, and their food is moldy. And they've taken great care to look like they came from a really long way away. And they come to the Israelites and ask for a covenant so that their people can live in peace and not be destroyed by the Israelites. And it specifically says that without consulting with God, without asking, they take the evidence of their eyes, they take their own wisdom, and they go ahead and make this covenant. So here we have them going without God before them, not looking to what God says, how they are to move. And we have them violating one of the very first things that He says about going into the new land is, you will not make covenants with the people that live there. Your job is to wipe them out completely. But they wind up making this covenant, and it sets up one of the most problematic scientific issues of the Bible. And it's interesting that God allows this to come into place. And I think it's a moment that we are supposed to stop and struggle with. So because the Israelites make this covenant with Gibeon, as soon as they realize what's happened, the other kings in the area decide to come together and fight against this newly peaceable space. These people that have just made peace with the Israelites. And again, God had a plan that they were going to take kingdom by kingdom. They were not supposed to fight multiple people at the same time. They weren't supposed to wipe out more people than Israel could cover the gap in population. They weren't supposed to have to handle more than they could handle in a given amount of time span, like with the amount of people that they have, the daylight that they had. It wasn't supposed to be more than they could handle. But because they make this covenant with Gibeon, they now have multiple kings that have come together against that city, and they are required, because of their word, to go and protect them. So they come against this huge force, and it's more than they can handle. This is the moment where Joshua asks God to stop the sun and the moon because he realizes that there is not enough day length, there is not enough time for him to accomplish fighting and winning against this huge host, this multifaceted host. And it says that there is no day before or after when God listens to the voice of a man. And it says that, indeed, God stopped the sun and the moon. Now, what this has set up in our time is this is one of the most pointed at moments in the Bible for, well, this is all made up unicorns and marshmallows, and you can't believe anything. Because the Bible, if you believe it, you have to believe all of it. So either you believe it or you don't. And this sets up this issue where what I grew up with was that I was actually taught in all of the Christian dogma of the churches that I was raised in that the Bible wasn't true. Such an interesting thing. I was taught that it's just a series of stories. It's just a series of morality tales that are helping me understand God better. But I was never given to believe that the Bible was true. And the problem with that is that the reality is you either read the Bible as true or not. And so this is a real difficult spot. It's a problem. Either God has stopped the sun, and what we understand from the science that we are able to grasp is that if the sun stops, it really means that the earth has stopped. And if the earth stops, then what about gravity? Does everybody just fly off into the cosmos? Or is God physically going against every law of nature in order to respond to this man's request? And is he going against every law of nature to help Joshua overcome people that he did not plan for them to have to go against altogether because they made a mistake and they went against his will? And already this week we've talked about the fact that God is a loving parent. He allows us to have our consequences. So it doesn't really make sense here that God is going to violate his laws of design, his laws of truth and justice, to keep Joshua and the Israelites from feeling the effects of rebelling against him and going their own way and not feeling the consequences of their actions. It makes more sense that Joshua and all of the Israelites would potentially be, they would lose large numbers. They would be killed. They would lose their space in the land because the first thing they did was go in and violate what God said. Don't make covenants with these people. But God still has a purpose. He has an end in mind. He wants these people wiped out. So he is going to use Joshua and the Israelites in spite of their bad decision, in spite of them going against his plan. But he had a plan where it was much easier on them. I think if you go through some of the science of this idea that the sun and the moon stop, they're all over the map. There are some who believe that the sun truly did stop in its course across the sky, and God held back all of the laws of nature. There are actually corroborating history across many other cultures across the world. There is talk in written history of a day that was longer than any other day ever recorded. And so that casts sort of a doubt on whether or not this is true or not. If things outside of the Bible, histories outside the Bible, are recording some sort of anomaly, then it makes what's going on in the Bible a little bit more believable, even though it feels very against science. There are those who have traced back even in counting the number of days in the history of the earth and all of the history of human history, and as they've gone back, they have found a discrepancy of The amount of time between this and another issue that has happened put together would account for a missing day in human history, which could also support this. I like the theories that go with the fact that God allowed the earth to slow its spinning, which would have elongated the day and given enough time for the Israelites to accomplish what he needed them to do. And it would not stop the sun, it would not stop the earth's rotation, it would not harm gravity, but or harm any of the other systems in place on the earth, but it would elongate the day, and it would line up with other histories outside of biblical history. I think overall, it is a moment that we are intended to struggle with, because we have to decide whether we're taking God at his word or whether we're not. And I think when we allow this sort of idea that, well, we can hold it loosely, we can take some things as stories or exaggerations or elaborations, and some things we need to take really seriously. And humans are going to determine which of those things are in the right category at any given time. I think when we start to do that, we are inviting a notion that we can live our lives daily with this suspension of God's will for us when we feel like it. So, God said that our body is a temple and we are meant to take care of it. God said that if we follow all of his commandments, if we are completely faithful and walk in his path, he will guard us from illness. He will keep us safe. He will prosper us. But he doesn't really mean that when I want to go and eat a pack of ho-hos and pull into McDonald's and feed my family cheap fast food for the week because it will allow us to vacation or keep free money up for paying for iPhones or whatever else we rationalize. If we don't take God at his word, if we don't look at the Bible as truth, and then look into creation and see if it is mirrored there, and if we don't follow that to the letter, it allows us to get wishy-washy. It allows us to decide what of God's commandments are important. And it puts us back into this situation where Joshua and the Israelites leaned on their own understanding. They did their own observation here with these travelers. They clearly had all of the indications of traveling from a very long way. They went to a lot of trouble to deceive the Israelites so that they could protect themselves. And they decided that they just didn't need to go ask God for what was necessary here. They knew better. They were smart enough. We have to be careful about that. We are intended to go and seek God's will. We are supposed to give everything to God. And when we don't, there are huge, huge ramifications, either for ourselves or for things that will happen thinking about making a choice that is outside of God's will and the sun stands still. So what do you think? Do you think that there is truth here? Is there support? Dig into this, because we are not meant to read the Bible as exaggeration. It isn't just some hidden meaning that we're supposed to sort of glean if we think about it hard enough. God tells us that his truth is not hidden. It is not hard to find. We don't have to go on a quest. We don't have to be smart. We don't need to ask around. It's just right in front of us. So how are you taking this passage of the sun and the moon stopping? Overall, God got his way. They did accomplish the task that he set for them, but they paid a price. And I think that we need we need to be really clear about how we're looking at these things ourselves. I pray that God is blessing you today and that He brings you back to study with me again on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Don Combs Really.